Definitely a bit tight fitting into the plastic trim there. Everything is fitting perfect. Both pod lights are flush mounted into the front bumper. Wow, and they look sick. Whoa, super bright too. And here they are with all the lights on. There comes a point in any man's life where he needs to consider the finer things life has to offer. Things like flush mount off-road LED light pods. Here I have my 95 Suburban. If you follow the channel, you know the truck. I've recently been getting pretty serious about taking this thing out on some overlanding adventures. But there are still a few things that I need to do to make sure that I'm safe when I go. One of those things is adding some off-road LED lighting. In this case, I went to this company Diode Dynamics and found this excellent SS3 flush mount light pod that can be flush mounted almost anywhere for that near factory look. What you see here is the template included with the light kit, and I've placed it in such a position that I think would be perfect for these flush mount lights. Looking at the front of this truck, you can really get a sense for the overall width of the design. They designed it to look really wide, and they did a good job. It looks great, but I'm thinking I want to break that up. If I were to place LEDs way out here, I feel like it would just look a little weird. So I decided on placing it right here besides this license plate holder. If I place one here and one right on the other side, I feel like it'll help to triangulate the look and make it look a little less wide, and I just think that overall it'll look really good. The dual light kit includes everything you need to get up and running, including obviously the two lights, a couple gaskets, and these pigtails with the connections already on them. I also picked up this light duty wiring harness, which includes everything you need for an easy install. It even includes a switch for the dash. Looking at the back of the light here, you can see this rather uniquely designed heatsink, which looks like it'll do a great job. Also, what you don't see is a permanent set of wires coming out of the back of the light. Instead, you have the female socket for this connector right here. Okay, I got the light hooked up temporarily here just to show you the beam pattern and the color temperature of the light. This thing is not actually amber, it's yellow, and I do hope this is coming off on camera because it is very yellow. Looking at the wall there, and this is in pure daylight. My garage door is open and it is bright outside. You can see just how bright these are and just how wide and narrow that beam pattern is. And this is going to be awesome when I have two of these set up, shining such a wide swath of light out there for me to see in foggy conditions. Taking a peek behind the front bumper here, you can see I have these two bolts that go directly to that license plate bracket. And then there's these plastic stubs sticking out of these slots in the metal bumper itself. These plastic stubs hold on that black plastic rash guard there on the front of the bumper. Interestingly, right in between these two stub mounts, I have this blank space that is perfect for cutting into and mounting my light. When I was initially thinking about the placement of these light pods, this is exactly where I was thinking. And it just so turns out to be the perfect spot. Those plastic mounting stubs I was showing you, there's one here and there's one right about here. And because of the location of those two stubs, I can cut out the portion of the black plastic that I need to, and the remaining areas will still be secured into the metal bumper from the factory. So my first order of business is going to be to cut out the black plastic. Then when I have nice, clean bumper metal, I can cut out the section here out of the bumper. Okay, so I have my templates set here on each side of this license plate mount. I've tried my very best to make sure that these were correctly, aligned on each side with the center of the bumper, with the edge of this license plate, just trying to make sure that everything is very even, and I think I did a pretty good job. Now comes the terrifying part, and that is taking my razor blade and trying to cut the outside of this template out of this plastic here. I'm a little worried just because I know that this template is ever so slightly smaller than the actual physical dimension of the outside edge of that light. So I may have to cut this template out and then do some trimming if it is still a little too small of a space. This is so nerve-wracking. Oh wow, that went in there like butter. Let me cut all the way across. cut our piece out of there. So here's where I'm at right now. You can see I have the plastic all cut away, and I also have my outline for the inner circle I'm gonna have to cut out of the bumper here. But so far, everything seems to be fitting pretty good. I'm simply taking the pod, flipping it on its face, and just really pushing it right into place there. And you can see just how tight of a fit that's gonna be inside that black plastic. There is little tiny gaps there, but I'm not worried about that. I've made sure that this is a perfectly level horizontal line and perfectly level vertical line. So this should be a very good cut if I follow these lines here. I'm not exactly sure how it'll go, but I'm gonna attempt to use this to at least get me started. All right, well, I do have the first hole cut out as well as the bolt holes drilled. And let me tell you, that wasn't an easy task. The hardest part about cutting out this big hole is these corners. If it was a perfect 90-degree corner, of course, on these straight cuts, I can just cut all the way to the corner. But it's not, it's a rounded corner, and so therefore I had to go through various types of saws, a jigsaw, to try to get this radius, but it was literally impossible. In the end, my grinder with this cutoff wheel was the right choice to just kind of hack at it slowly. And then once I got the correct general shape, I came back with this file and filed the rest away. Yeah, it took a while. I would like to point out that I did nick this piece of chrome trim here. I nicked it right there and 2 times right there. And then we have a little burn mark right here from the grinding. All in all, not a huge deal. At just a few feet back, you can barely even see that stuff, so I'm not too worried about it. But let's go ahead and install this light and see just how well it fits. It's definitely a bit tight fitting into the plastic trim there, but I think that's it right there. Look how well that fits, guys. The bolt holes seem to be pretty good. The fit is literally perfect. I don't know how much better it could get. I could probably come in and sand these little edges of this plastic trim, but that's for another day. Right now, we're just trying to get these lights installed. Okay, taking a look behind the bumper here, you can see how well the light fits. It is fully seated. I just need to secure the fasteners there, but everything is fitting perfect. Well, there she is. Both pod lights are flush mounted into the front bumper, and I think it looks very factory and very good. So now I have the hard part done. Everything in terms of mounting is completely done. Everything is bolted up and good to go. The only thing I have to do now is actually do the wiring so we can turn these suckers on and see what they look like. And for that, I have Diode Dynamics Stage Series Off-Road Dual Light Duty Harness. So let's open this thing up and see what's inside. We have the wiring itself, of course, the 2 plug ends, and also the connections to the battery. They also include this simple switch, as well as some basic directions. And just as a small side note, these SS3 light pods did ship with 2 of these Deutsch connectors, so I could have wired them up myself, but I opted to pay just $20 for their wiring harness, just to make my life a little easier. All right, I've laid out the harness here just to make it a little easier to understand, not only for you, but definitely for me. It's pretty simple. You have your switch that's going to be in cab and all the wires running to the switch. Following this down, we are powered by this red and black wire that go to the battery. And following the other leg, we can see just where these 2 connectors get connected to the back of the lights. Very, very simple. I'm just hoping that I actually have enough wire here to make all of this work. As for the location of this switch, well, I do have a couple empty spaces here where I could mount the switch. And as it turns out, my temporary positioning for the CB microphone was not a good spot anyway. So I can use any one of these 3 locations, and all I have to do is just drill the hole and mount the switch. And of course, run the wires. So I'm thinking right here would probably be best. This will give me easy access to it while driving and also keep this little red light out of my line of sight. So I think this is the spot. Okay, looking here at the engine, I kind of sort of have the wires laid out where they're going to need to go. I have my power wires to the battery, of course. I have these wires here running down to the front of the truck because those are going to have to get routed to the lights themselves. But this is the end of wires that needs to go through the firewall to the switch. Now, I've dealt with this before with this truck, trying to figure out where I can run wires through the firewall, and there's literally no space anywhere. With some vehicles, I've seen people run wiring through the steering column shaft boot there on the firewall, but mine just doesn't have enough room. I also have things like this going through the firewall, but again, there's just no room. So I think in order to help myself now and in the future, there's a spot on the firewall right here that seems like it would be the perfect location. Now, trust me, drilling through the firewall of my truck is not something that I ever thought I would have to do. But there literally is no other way to get wires through that firewall. So I'm thinking that if I can drill a pretty nice hole and use some sort of rubber grommet in there, it'll be my access point for obviously now, but also in the future should I need to run more wiring. Looking under the firewall here, we can see just where I think that's going to come out. There's this big open space right here, and I think if I drill through that, it'll be probably dead center. This area is obviously very tight to get a drill into, so I'm at somewhat of an angle, but if I can just get this hole started, I can finish it inside the cab. Let's see where that went through. All right, look at that. Well, that went through exactly where I was thinking it would, and now I can finish the job from the inside here where I have more room for my drill. In order to get the rest of the way through that firewall, I have some step bits that I'm going to use. I picked up these diaphragm grommets, which I think I'm going to use because we can still push the wire through without allowing there to be a hole. In this kit of assorted grommets, you can see that they all have a hole that remains. And because I'm dealing with an engine compartment and the firewall, I don't want there to be any sort of access point for exhaust gases or what have you. So I think these guys are going to be the ticket. Okay, our grommet is now installed and everything fits perfect. And here it is from the inside, and again, just fits perfect. So like I said before, I never envisioned myself actually drilling a hole through the firewall of my truck. That's to me like a big no-no. That's where you start getting into, screwing things up for life with these things. So I was able to get it what I think looks as factory as possible. I don't see a better option for me to be able to quickly and easily get wires through the firewall. And that's my new access point for this job as well as possible jobs in the future. So I'm pretty stoked about it, I think. All right, I already have 2 sets of wires run through, no problem, and I just have 1 left. And there are the wires. Perfect. Now that I have the wiring run through the firewall, I'm trying to figure out if I have enough slack. You can see the 2 sets of wires here that go to the back of the actual light pods. And then up here, we have our power wire and ground wire that go to this battery. I've already run one of the plugs into the back of the passenger side light, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the driver's side. Of course, I will be neatly tucking all this wire away and enclosing it in some wire loom. But for now, my next chore is to figure out, like I said, if I have enough wire on the inside of the cab to be able to pull up to the switch location. This is how much wire I currently have in the current situation. I can pull a little bit back, but I don't think I can pull much. And the switch location is just about there, so you can see I might be a little short on wiring. Okay, so there's been a slight change of plans. If you take a look at my wiring here, this is all the slack I have, not much. I did want the switch located right about here, but there's no way that's happening without me splicing a bunch of wires. So the other option I came up with is right about here. It makes sense. The headlight switch is just above it, and this would be the fog lights. So I think overall, although I do not like drilling new holes in my truck, this is probably the better spot. I have the wires run where they're gonna go, and I hooked up the switch and hooked the power up to the battery. I'm doing this just to test that the system does work and the switch works before I drill a hole for the switch. So here's what that switch looks like. Let's go ahead and flip it on. It's illuminated red, which is cool. And there we go. The fog lights are now working. Wow, and they look sick. Whoa, super bright too. And here they are with all the lights on. Man, I think the decision to put them close to that license plate on the bumper was perfect. How sick does that look, guys? Well, now it's time to finalize the installation and go test them out. Okay, that's a 3/4 inch hole right there. It seems like I've drilled the hole big enough, however, the switch has this raised keyway on it. So I think I might try to notch out a little slot for this keyway and see if I can't get this switch to just slide right in. Okay, I'm just gonna use a small file here. See if I can't work away at this. I've got it to seat a little bit. I'm wondering if my actual hole is just a touch too small. Yep, there she goes all the way. Well, all right, I'm out driving the truck and you can see that unbelievably yellow stripe of light on the wall. Turning off my headlights reveals that stripe even more. These lights are incredibly focused. There's almost zero spill anywhere else other than the way they designed these to be. You can see just how far it goes to the left and to the right. And wow, that is just so cool. All right, here we are at another wall. I was trying to find a parking lot that was a little more flat. This one isn't perfectly flat, but it's better than the last one. So what I'm attempting to show you is the angle of the light. You can see the yellow stripe just on the bottom of the wall, and I'm probably about 25 to maybe 30 feet back. Now it is lighting up pretty much the entire ground area, which is pretty cool. But in terms of lighting up the area in front of me, I kind of sort of feel like the lights need to be angled up just a little bit more. You guys saw when I installed these lights, they are on the flattest part of my bumper here, but I'm afraid my bumper is tilted down ever so slightly. So I may have to shim this up just a little bit. That just depends. I'll have to drive with them some more and see how I like them. And here is the truck from the front, and you can see just how nice those yellow fog lights are. They are super bright, and it does light up the entire area in front of me. And I don't know, guys, comment below what you think, but I kind of think they're perfect. They definitely have a really good look to them. Also, if you take a look at this bumper, it's not perfectly flat this way. It kind of angles back on each side. So not only am I dealing with an angle back on each side here, I'm also dealing with a slight decline on the face of the bumper. It's not much, it's very slight, and as I was installing this, I knew that and kind of thought, man, it's probably gonna be perfect, and it kind of is. You can see just how far I am away from this wall, and this should give you a good idea at just how high those lights are angled. Not bad. And here's that switch, which looks awesome. It works awesome. I can see the light when I'm driving, and this, I just love it. Off, on, of course. And here is the truck with everything on. You guys tell me what you think down in the comments section below. As for me, I think this thing looks epic. Well, I think that does it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Also, subscribe if you're not already. I'm Jimmy for One Road, and I will see you in the next one.